So the next one is to review the food in your house for sodium. And maybe let's talk about what sodium does and why it's important to hypertension.
So I'm sure all of you have heard, at some point or the other, the moment anyone talks about what is the best food for hypertension, the first thing they talk about is low sodium food. Now, the fact is, yes, have eating high amount of sodium is not good for not just hypertension, for stomach cancer and a lot of other conditions. But it is also important to remember that not everybody has salt sensitive hypertension. Now, Andrea and I will go over that on another episode. Otherwise, this episode is going to become really long. So, what do you do as a person with? Now, here I'm assuming you have hypertension. So, you're going to go over your food. First and foremost is, are you eating too much sodium? And the commonest way to know, because there is no simple blood test, which is testing your blood for sodium is not going to tell you whether you have salt sensitive hypertension. And salt, meaning table salt, is sodium chloride. So high sodium can raise blood pressure. And some of my patients, Andrea, you won't believe, they actually know. Like they'll go to a restaurant and the food has more salt than they normally have,
Right.
and they'll say, my blood pressure has definitely gone up. I know I can feel it. Like sometimes they feel a headache.
Wow.
Sometimes they say, I can't pinpoint, but I know this is more sodium than I normally have.
Right.
But some people have no symptoms at all. So,
Yeah.
first of all, review your food. Now, if you eat mostly at home, then the chances of you eating a lot of extra sodium is less,
Wow.
because yeah, because processed food contain a whole lot more sodium. So things like processed meat, and some of you have probably you realize that when you have, or some chips or any of those things, you feel that, I know I feel it. I always say this one has too much salt, like my palate doesn't like so much salt. And
Right.
it's not necessary that I'm concerned about my blood pressure, and that's why it's like that much of salt bothers me.
Right. You know your body and you know what feels
Yeah.
good, which is great. When we really tune in, it's great. It has a lot of messages for us.
So
I-
one more thing I want to share is, when you are looking at your food, what is the thing you should check in the nutrition label? And here I'm assuming that because food that you cook at home, natural food, usually will not have a nutrition label. So this is a sample nutrition label, and you can see it says here sodium 1060 milligram. I usually tell my patient, just ignore the daily value, because you are not just eating this one thing,
yeah.
you are eating multiple things. So rather than get all thing about calculating this percentage and that percentage, calculate the total amount of sodium. So for those who are listening and you can't see what I'm showing, this is a nutrition label like any other nutrition label on any packaged food, which shows you how much of how many calories. I don't usually talk about calories at all,
Nope.
but fat percentage, carbohydrate, protein, cholesterol, and here it has sodium, potassium, calcium, and iron. So these are all listed in the nutrition facts. So in the nutrition facts, in that, and sometimes nowadays I've noticed that they also add high sodium, like that is kind of like a red this thing.
Mm.
So check how much of sodium there is in that particular packaged food that you are planning to buy. So this is something, again, Andrea, your practical suggestions. What would you suggest people do
Well,
when
I
they
think there's a couple things. There's one-time action of you can just, and any one-time action you could just put on your calendar, or you could say, you know what, tonight I'm going to start dinner just a little bit earlier, and I'm going to take a look at some of the nutrition on whatever I'm preparing if it's in a packaged state, right? Take a look at the sodium. You could also, when you go to the store and grab something packaged off the shelf, so when you grab the package, just take a look at the sodium content on it so that you know. Now, the what do you want for sodium levels throughout the day? Like if is this 1,000, it seems like if this 1,000 plus milligrams is 46%,
46%? Yeah.
you're looking at what, 2,500
Yeah.
milligrams
So
a
the
day?
recommendation is around 1500 milligrams a day. But again, like I said, not everyone has salt sensitive hypertension, and there is no simple test to know. So if you are like way higher than, let's say you are at 5,000, 3,000, then what is the next thing, Andrea, they should do?
Right. Well, the trickier thing is when you are stopping something,
Yeah.
right? Then that is, it's easier to design for something than to design to stop something because there's many different paths for that. One of the things is you can find one food that has higher sodium that you like, and either remove it if that's possible, right?
Hmm.
If you're not a huge, or limit it, right? If you have a bag of chips every day at lunch, maybe just don't grab those chips. If you really are attached to your chips, then start with something easier, right? Start with something you can eliminate or shift to
Hmm.
support you in that. And then you can always substitute if you can find a
Yeah.
different substitute for that. But a lot of times, the initial action, once you have this understanding and you choose to make a change, then I don't always suggest cold turkey unless you feel like that's a fit for.
No, that doesn't work.
Maybe on Mondays you don't have chips,
Yeah.
right? And then maybe you work up to Tuesdays or maybe, things like that. That take the low-hanging fruit where it's easiest for you to do, right? If you are really attached to your chips at lunch, don't start there. Maybe you
No.
start with some packaged food that you have at home and you start to learn how to cook that food, right? Or you decide I don't have that 5 days a week or 3 days a week, maybe I only have it once a week and you find something else, right? So this is a little more of a tangled web that we
Mhm.
need to untangle, but there are some easy places for you to start. And I want you to understand that you should start at the easiest place for you,
Yeah.
right? It really is the most important thing. Start where it's easy and make it easy for yourself to continue to do.
Yeah, and another thing which I use quite a lot of it for, eating lower carbohydrate food, but you can use it for eating lower salt too. So, for example, if you know that today for lunch you had sausages, and if they are not sausages from your local, butcher who makes them, boutique and in a small batch and all that,
Yeah.
very likely that sausage will have more salt. So you had sausages for lunch, then maybe you want to, kind of not have the chips with your, if you don't have the chips at all, that's wonderful. But as
Yep.
Andrea said, don't try to stop everything at the same time. So maybe don't have the sausage and the chips on the same day, just
Right.
to reduce your overall sodium intake for that day. So
Exactly.
these are like small things that Andrea and I, we love sharing practical strategies, because we all know, everyone knows practically what you should do, but you will not hear us talking about a lot of shoulds.
Exactly. Exactly. And there are many ways to lower your hypertension, right? And the best way is the way that you can do, right? If you can't get yourself to stop eating sausages, then don't. Start at another place where you can reduce your sodium, and then maybe the sausages come along, or maybe not, and that's okay,
Yeah.
right? But start where what you can. We call this the fast pass question. What can I get myself to do that would be effective at fill in the blank? And today it's hypertension. So what can you get yourself to do? That means you're motivated, and that means you have ability, right? And start there because success will lead to success. So should we talk about the final